Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our second official employability webinar here at IT Online Learning. We just ran a couple minutes late. I just wanted to give everybody the opportunity to hop on and join us today. So as you all know, today we're going to be chatting about cover letters. What are they? Why are they important? And how do we use one? So during the webinar, as with our last webinar, please feel free to comment your questions in the little Q&A box. And then as we're going, we'll just kind of address those toward the end of the webinar. Okay, so first off, what is a cover letter and why is it important, or what is it for? So a cover letter is also referred to as a covering letter, a motivational letter, motivating statement, letter of motivation. Very similarly to the cover page of a magazine or a newspaper, a cover letter is a kind of note or a letter sent with and explaining what is contained in another document. And that's especially for CVs, resumes, that kind of thing. Basically, it's intended to intrigue a hiring manager into taking a look at your CV. It's to make them curious about what is in your CV. Okay, our goal with the cover letter is to persuade the potential employer to take a look at your CV and to invite you for an interview. A good cover letter is really important because without the right kind of information or structure, a recruiter or a hiring manager may not be impressed enough to even glance at your CV. And without that happening, you don't stand a chance at securing an interview for that position. Okay. Now for us to cover when you should use one. So the answer to this question is quite simply, absolutely, whenever you can. An important factor to note is that a cover letter will always do more good than harm, my goodness. So if there is an option to submit a cover letter, do it, always. Good cover letters are especially important and beneficial for career changes or individuals with very little employment history, like graduates, for example, or for individuals returning from, for example, a career sabbatical, and or those with a noticeable career gap. So in general, you might be required to submit a cover letter when the role you're applying to requires one, when the recruiter, hiring manager, or prospective employer requests one, also when you are applying directly to a person and you know their name, or when you have been referred by somebody for the position in question. Okay, the only times that a cover letter should not be included in your application are if you're not given the option to do so, which you might see in most cases when you're applying for positions online through a job board, or if you are expressly told not to include a cover letter in your application. Okay. Now, finally, what should a cover letter include? So in a cover letter, you should always introduce yourself, illustrate how you will add value by expanding on your skills, your training, your experience, or you can also, or should also, be suggesting solutions and innovations that you have for the company, and or you can explain your interest in working for the company. And then lastly, you would detail your availability and your contact information. Okay, now before we dive into what a cover letter should look like or what it should contain in detail, we should also discuss what a cover letter is not and the do's and don'ts involved in constructing an effective cover letter. Okay, so let's jump into it. Always follow instructions if there are any. So you might find instructions for a cover letter when you're applying to roles in the public sector. So for example, I did see quite often with the NHS, you are generally given instructions on which competencies and core behaviors you would have to expand on and demonstrate. And sometimes you also are given a restriction or limit in terms of your character and word count. So those are explicit instructions on how to construct your cover letter. Now in this webinar, we're just going to go through the cover letter as if there have been no aforementioned contact people or instructions or limitations. Okay. Next, avoid explaining why you are looking for a new job or salary expectations, again, unless you are explicitly instructed otherwise. That's something that you can always say for the interview if you're asked about it. So the interviewer is only interested in how suitable you are as a candidate, no more and no less. If there are questions surrounding that, they will save any of them for a potential interview. Okay, next up, never focus solely on you and your life or your experience. So for example, if you find yourself in a difficult situation because you've been laid off or you've been made redundant, if you've been fired, or even if you've resigned, a cover letter is not the place to discuss or highlight this. Your cover letter should only cover, if you'll excuse the pun, how suitable you are for the role. So in essence, your cover letter should demonstrate your understanding of the company, the role, and what you can bring to each of those. Next, never submit a cover letter that's general or has not been tailored. It is so easy for a recruiter to pick up on when a cover letter is copied and pasted or when it's not been created from scratch. So phrases like this company and this role, instead of specifying which company and which role, make it incredibly clear to recruiters and prospective employers. So be sure to remain as specific as possible for the roles and the companies you are applying to. Next up, do not repeat the content of your CV, and this is a very common mistake. If a prospective employer wanted to know what your work experience was or your career history, they would look at your CV. It's not necessary to give a summary of your work history unless there's something indisputably relevant to your application. So if there's a specific deliverable or an achievement that aligns with the company in question. Your CV is attached so that the recruiter or the hiring manager can then further investigate how suitable you are. The cover letter is there to tie in your skills, soft and hard, to the role and to the company specifically. Next is tone. Tone is really important. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance when it comes to trying to showcase how excellent you are as a candidate. The fine line is something that you will need to pay very close attention to because you can easily either under or oversell yourself. So for example, you could say something like, I'm sure I will be able to fulfill the responsibilities of this job, but that doesn't exactly exude confidence. So on the contrary, saying something like, I am the best candidate for this job might also read as potentially arrogant. A safe in between would be a humble but self-assured approach. So you would say something along the lines of, I'm certain that I will be able to contribute toward insert organization in a positive light while I continuously hone my skills in an effort to maintain growth. Okay. Next, stay away from lengthy and wordy cover letters with minimal spacing. Similar to the CV that we covered a couple of weeks ago, it's really important to make your cover letter clear with ample use of white or negative space. A cover letter that's a single page or more of just solid text can be rather off-putting, and a prospective employer might easily discard your application without a second glance at your CV. According to Forbes, 70% of employers prefer a cover letter that's half a page or less. Okay. Next, we have be original. Too many cover letters contain phrases like, I would like to apply for, and I think, or I believe I would be. This gives the impression that you lack confidence in your actions and your abilities. So I would advise using strong, concise language to effectively drive all of your points home and remaining original to yourself and to your personality. Okay. Next, one of the most basic rules that many people do not adhere to is check your cover letter for spelling errors. So according to a survey done by Accountemps, about 20% of hiring managers throw CVs away after spotting one single mistake or grammatical error in either the CV or the cover letter. So by the second error, I'm sure that the 80% that remain will dramatically decrease. The main reason why this could be due to the fact that doing a simple spell check or having a friend or a family member review your cover letter is so effortless, it should be a given. So always make sure you review your cover letter for any spelling or grammatical mistakes. Next is more of a choice, but I prefer to include it, and that is to mirror the design or the format of your CV to an extent. So this is just a choice. It just maximizes your professionalism as well as your attention to detail. So by saying this, I mean maintaining the font, the text size, and header size, just similar to as in your CV if there is any consistent theme you would like to carry over. And then lastly, including your address or the recipient's address is now old-fashioned and outdated. So in the past, cover letters were actual letters, sent in the post or in the mail, which is why you would have found the emails of, or not the emails, the addresses of both parties in the letters. Nowadays, applications are submitted electronically more often than not, so it's not necessary to include physical addresses so much anymore. Okay. Now that we've got all of that down, let's take a look at a job description and an example of a cover letter. So we're going to be using John Smith's CV and candidate profile from our last webinar to apply for this role. Before we start constructing a cover letter, we need to identify which role it is we are applying to. So this is a job that I found that I feel would be realistic for John to apply to, given his experience and his skills and certifications. So he is going to be applying for an ICT Development Operations Manager. Okay. So when constructing a cover letter, you ought to have the format already laid out. A format that includes your name, somewhere, your cell phone number, email address, and postal code. Additional information like your LinkedIn URL is optional, but I have included this just to maintain consistency from the CV to the cover letter. Step number 1 is the date. Make sure that this date coincides with the date that you have submitted your application. Okay. Next, we need to address the group or the individual that your application will be going to. So sometimes the job description will have contact information available, specifically the person's name, who you are going to be in touch with, or an email address, which does tend to make things a bit easier. When you do not have a contact person's details, you can either address the company's hiring or recruitment team, or you can show some initiative and proactivity by calling the organization and obtaining a name for the person who will be reading and reviewing your application. Okay, avoid at all costs saying something like to whomever this may concern. It is impersonal and unprofessional. So for smaller companies, your application might be reviewed by the CEO or maybe the owner, but for larger organizations, there'll generally be an HR associate or a team involved in your application process. An interesting fact that many people either forget or are not aware of is that a hiring manager is not necessarily someone that has to do with recruitment directly. Most of the time, a hiring manager is the person that you would be reporting to directly if you get the job. So for example, if I were applying for a job in the support team here at IT Online Learning, I would address Stacy as the hiring manager because I would directly be reporting to her. Okay. In this case, we're going to make use of something slightly simpler, and we're going to be addressing the Volker Wessel's recruitment team. Okay. Now, for the introductory paragraph, you would express your interest in the role and where you found it. So, for example, on a job board, via social media, through a referral, or whatever the case may be. In one short sentence, you should also highlight specifically what you can bring to the company and the role. Okay. Now, the next paragraph will mainly revolve around the relevant skills or experience that you have in relation to the role and the company again. Additionally, you should include information and details on why you feel you would be a good cultural fit for the organization. Okay, so that would be linking between your skills, your experience, values, and your goals wherever you possibly can. Try to incorporate as much from the person specification as well as the job description into your cover letter as you possibly can. Okay. And then the last full paragraph is your opportunity to drive home what value you can add. It might require a little bit of a closer look at the duties and responsibilities you would be required to fulfill. So if you do have a past experience, achievement, or a career highlight that's particularly relevant to the deliverables you need to achieve in this role, take the time to highlight these in the last paragraph. Also mentioning that you would like to discuss this in more detail with the prospective employer should you be granted an interview. Okay, now once you've covered these sections, you can choose to close with a statement such as, I have attached my CV for your review. Some people choose not to include this as it may seem a bit redundant because everyone does know that a cover letter and a CV do go hand in hand with one another. However, I do find it to be quite professional, so you can add this to your cover letter should you deem it necessary or beneficial. And then finally, you can close with a statement detailing which channels of communication you are available on, as well as any days and times that are most suitable for you. Ideally, you don't have to, or you shouldn't, break down your schedule for the prospective employer because you should be working around them, not the other way around. A simple closing word of thanks can add a lovely personal and sincere touch to your cover letter. So, for example, just thank you for your time and consideration before signing off with your name. And that is that for cover letters targeted at a specific role and company. But I feel it's also really important to discuss speculative cover letters. Okay, so as the name suggests, speculative could be synonymous with hypothetical or theoretical. In a sense, it would be something like, if you as a company hypothetically had a vacancy, I would be very interested in applying, and I think I would be a good fit for what you do. So submitting speculative applications show a special kind of initiative that showcases determination. You're metaphorically knocking on doors that seem closed and waiting for someone to open one and let you in. Okay, so speculative cover letters tend to take slightly more time to submit as opposed to a traditional cover letter for a specific role. And that's simply because you are required to do more research. There's no job description to rely on or to extract information and key details from. So you will manually have to research the organization, its values, what they do, news and projects pertaining to them. And it's for that reason that speculative cover letters are held in high regard by recruiters and hiring managers. So speculative cover letters need to be intentional. You need to showcase passion or a personal and vested interest in what the company does, believes in, or is working toward. Now, without understanding those key aspects and using them in your cover letter, you might come across as though you are grasping at straws. Okay, now, once conducting your research, you can link your education, experience, and skills to the organization. Starting off, you should address your cover letter to someone specific. So, for example, if we are going to apply speculatively to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we would then research Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation recruiter on Google or on LinkedIn. When I did this, Todd Owens' profile appeared. So now we know to address our letter to Todd Owens. Now, we are going to have roughly the same structure as the other cover letter, except this time everything we would have taken from the job description is going to be taken from our experience or our research. So once you've addressed the recruiter, hiring manager, or recruitment team, you can then expand on your qualifications or experience with some sort of motivation as to why you are speculatively applying to the company. It's a good place to tie your values into the cover letter as well. Now, for our next paragraph, you would again highlight your relevant skills and experience in slightly more detail whilst tying the company and its objectives, goals, or vision into your own personal progression. Okay. Now, the last full paragraph or paragraphs are your opportunity to drive home what value you can add to the organization. If you have a past experience or career highlight or an achievement that is particularly relevant to the deliverables you will need to achieve in this company, take the time to highlight these in the last paragraph. Okay. So once you've covered those sections, you can again close with an invitation for them to contact you for an interview, followed by an optional short statement about your CV being attached and perhaps that you look forward to hearing from them soon. Lastly, as always, just close off with your contact details and your availability for an interview with an indication that you will reach out to them should you not be contacted within X amount of time. Just a simple thank you and for your time and consideration is always great with a sincere sign-off before you indicate your name. And that's it. Your speculative cover letter is done. Now, once you've completed your desired cover letter, it's great to review it alongside your CV just to ensure that the theme, the colors, font sizes are all consistent throughout to tie your application together really nicely. So now we're going to go through Jane's cover letter, and I used Jane Smith instead of John Smith for this speculative application. So we go, Dear Todd Owens, I am a recent graduate of several project management qualifications, as well as a degree in fine art, looking to start my project management career in an environment where I can contribute toward a world where everyone can lead a healthy and productive life, regardless of gender, age, and ethnicity. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has a reputation that precedes itself in that they are a progressive organization consistently improving the health and well-being of individuals who are unable to do so independently. I've personally been impacted and inspired by the trials taking place for sustainable magic seeds. As someone that comes from a farming community, there are a few things I am as passionate about as sustainability and reducing world hunger. My experience in delivering creative solutions, being an excellent team player, and providing consistently high levels of client satisfaction make me an excellent candidate for a position at the foundation. Additionally, I share mutual values of optimism, collaboration, rigor, innovation, and inclusion with the foundation. Consequently, I feel I would be an exceptional culture fit for your organization while contributing toward its goals and objectives. From my research, I've deduced that your team is inherently compassionate, committed, and skilled in different fields. It would be fantastic if we could discuss how my past experience in working with cross-functional teams could expedite the success of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I have attached my most recent CV for your perusal. I look forward to speaking with you during an interview. Please feel free to contact me on insert contact number anytime during the day. Alternatively, I will be in touch next week regarding my application. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Jane Smith. Okay. So essentially, a cover letter comes down to a pitch. After reading your cover letter, do you feel confident and compelled to contact the person who wrote it because you know what they can do and what you need them to do, or because you know that they will align really well with your team and your organization? If not, this might be a good opportunity to review your cover letter and to make a few changes. Okay, so imagine your favorite product. Does it expedite or improve any processes? Has it saved you on costs? Do other relevant people recommend it? Which features are most valuable or convenient? How would this product compare to other similar products, or what makes it stand out? What problem does this product solve? Okay, now imagine trying to sell this product, but now ask yourself those questions about yourself. So have you been able to expedite or improve processes? Have you saved costs at a company? Have your colleagues or managers recommended you which of your skills are most valuable or convenient for others? How do you compare to other similar professionals, or what makes you stand out? What problem do you solve for people who are looking to hire? Okay, so that's it for today's webinar on cover letters. We are going to be running through a couple of questions regarding cover letters. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Like I said earlier, we will be sending the recording out with all of the resources that we've used today, including the presentation. If you would like to have your cover letter reviewed after going through this webinar and making the changes to your existing cover letter, please feel free to get in touch with me. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thank you so very much for attending our webinar. Thank you so much.